Welcome to the Baldeagle242 YouTube channel. Today I've got a Ford Edge here that we're getting ready to put a windshield in. Figured something different for the channel today. If you heard our buddy barking in the background, we got a helper over here too. How often do you get into something like this and then find out somebody's already been here before you and replaced the windshield and find things wrong?
Oh, a lot of times. I recommend Google reviewing anytime you have any kind of service done. We have pretty much grade A reviews. Those bigger companies, they hire people that have no clue what they're doing, and that's where you're going to run into damages.
Okay, that's good advice for any company, is just always check out the reviews.
Absolutely.
Something else I've always wondered in windshields like this, you know, when you see technicians out there doing glass, there's usually only one of them. It just seems like a big piece of glass to try to put in by yourself. Most windshields you do by yourself, don't you?
Yes, sir. There are some that are bigger that require two people, but there are also tools to help you with that. We have one tool that's called a Pro Set. It has a track that is set on the hood, attached this contraption on the windshield, and when you're ready to set it, you set the end of the contraption onto that slide it through, and then lay it down.
Okay.
It's pretty much takes the second person out of the whole thing.
Okay.
This reveal molding off, and just so you know, these moldings do absolutely nothing for water. This is all purely cosmetic. So I'm pulling this out because this will make it easier to cut out, because the new windshield actually has this on it.
Now, what is your opinion of aftermarket glass versus original factory glass?
Today, the best aftermarket glass is called Fuyao, and they are actually OEM for a lot of cars. GM has it in their cars for the newer ones, BMW, Land Rovers, Jaguars, Teslas. We do end up buying a lot of Fuyao stuff.
Have you had any supply issues on?
Yes, absolutely. We've had issues, especially getting OEM glass. It's been tough with some cars. It's taken us 2 to 3 months sometimes to get a windshield. And that's for OEM. Aftermarket has not been as bad, but it still has been bad. Sometimes it takes us a week or two.
So does the new windshield already come with that bracket to mount your rearview mirror on?
Yes, this metal slug comes with that on it. Now, the reason why I took that mirror off like that is because a lot of guys will take this and just pull on it, and it will come off. But if you don't do what I just did, which is to bend this little lock thing in and then pound it up, when you pull on it, it actually loosens these rivets up and it makes the mirror wobbly. Now the fun part, we're going to cut this booger out. This is the primary tool we use, called a cold knife. Any auto parts store sells them.
And that's cutting the urethane between the glass and the body of the car.
Correct. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to use another tool called an extractor. And it's basically, but isn't, a Sawzall. Sawzall has a longer stroke, whereas this extractor tool that I'm getting ready to use has a shorter stroke. A Sawzall has about 1 inch long stroke, whereas this thing, it's pretty, if you don't use this tool and you want to try and build one out of a Sawzall, it'll beat you to death.
All right, so this is just, like you said, similar to a Sawzall.
Correct.
But different, and you've got like a wide blade on there. So what's a tool like that cost? That's pretty specific to the window industry, isn't it?
Correct, yes. And this is an old one, but this is an oldie but a goodie. It works great. This tool costs about $800.
Wow.
They have come down a little bit, but they're still pretty expensive. You can see the stroke on this. It's about 1/4 inch, 3/8. It's not very far. Now, a Sawzall, like I said, will have 3/4 of an inch to 1 inch. Old school guys used to push on the inside with their head and then use what we call a pipe knife.
Okay.
And just kind of got down in between the dashboard and the glass. Now, I will tell you that this tool, if you can cut with a cold knife, you should do that, because this tool, if you don't use it correctly, will scar the pinch weld. And if you don't prep that correctly, it will rust and cause you issues down the road. A year or two down the road, it could rust and then it'll cause it to leak.
That makes short work of that job.
Yeah, why a lot of people will use this all the way around it, because I probably could have cut this out 5 minutes quicker. It's not worth it because quality to me and my company is first. Then, just lift this booger right out of here. And she's out. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take all this old urethane off here. And yes, I'm using a good old wood chisel. Doesn't matter what you use, as long as it's got a good sharp edge and it cuts it easy.
All right, so that's a pretty thick, what'd you say that is?
I usually tell
Eighth or
people,
quarter inch?
yeah, it's about a quarter of an inch. But I usually tell people that urethane, when it's dried, has the consistency of like a tire. It's pretty thick. You can probably pull it apart if you were really, really strong. And then when I first dispense it out of the gun, it has the consistency of like peanut butter.
Now, when you're doing a job like this, how long does it normally take?
Depends on the car. Some of them, like say Jeep Wranglers, can do them in about 30 minutes. Typically, the average windshield takes about an hour. Now you're gonna see a couple spots here where it pulled off, the urethane pulled off the body. We wanna make sure we cover it up so the primer is the surface that the urethane is sticking to. The kit that I buy comes with everything. The glue, the primers, these little daubers, glass cleaner, the tips for the urethane. It comes with everything you need to put a windshield in. The next thing we're gonna do, while that primer is drying, that particular primer made by Dow, they recommend 5 to 10 minutes for it to cure, to set up before you run your urethane. So while that is curing, we're gonna come over and prep the windshield next. You clean it while it's out of the car on the inside because it's a lot easier to reach down here at the bottom than when it's in the car.
Now, what does your average windshield installation cost the end user?
The older cars, like say this one for example, you're probably looking at somewhere around 300. Some of your newer cars with the technology in it that requires OEM, you could easily run over $2,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because some of them, from what we were talking about earlier, you have to calibrate cameras and
Correct.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that's on top of the normal window installation.
Correct. We just did a 2018 Honda Accord that had the cameras in it. Now, Honda Accords are really, really calibration specific. They have to have the camera recalibrated.
Okay.
And recalibrating a windshield today costs anywhere between $350 and $800 just to recalibrate the windshield. That doesn't include the windshield, labor to put it in, and all that. So we did a Honda Accord and it was just over $2,000.
Now this is what you were calling the primer?
This is the primer that the glue that I use requires on the glass.
Okay. And you just run a nice layer of that around the windshield.
Correct, and you're supposed to make 2 passes with this. That's what Dow recommends.
So how did you learn how to do all this stuff, Rich? Did you go to school for this, or was this hands-on job training?
This is pretty much a hands-on job training. Some technical schools will teach it, but this is the kind of thing that you honestly, quite honestly, you're either good at it or you're not. You learn from it and you pick up from the people you're working with. If somebody's a good teacher, I've been doing it for 25 years and I still learn every single day.
Yeah.
New cars come out every, once, twice a year, and they're all different. They all go in different. Moldings come off different. It's different than the prior year's model.
Yeah.
All right, so now the glass is prepped and ready to go in. This pretty much dries pretty quick. By the time I get this off and then run the glue on the pinch weld, we should be ready to go. So this is the glue we use. It's called Express BP. It's got a 60-minute drive away time. It's high modulus, non-conductive. That is what HMNC stands for. If you don't use a non-conductive glue in some of these cars, it'll cause radio interference, or sometimes if your key fob to unlock or lock a car won't work.
Interesting. I would have never realized that.
Yep.
All right, so this is an electric gun, it looks like, or battery-powered gun.
Yes. And this is an arm saver. Back when I first started, we squeezed it out of a caulk
Yeah, I
gun.
can imagine. That would take
Yeah.
some effort to keep that going steady, too.
Yep, when it's cold, buddy, you're not pushing this out with a regular caulk gun.
Wow.
This stuff's pretty thick. It's pretty high viscosity. So what I usually do is I start in the middle at the bottom.
You're putting a pretty thick bead on it.
I don't want my friend calling me telling me his windshield leaks. When you put the windshield in, it'll be about a 1/4 of an inch to, you know, somewhere around a 1/4 inch, 3/16 tall. All right, time for you and I to set this windshield. Okay, so we're gonna match the top up with the top corner first, and we're gonna lay the bottom in, and then lay the bottom down, or the top in and the bottom down in the glue. Now you can't always do the top first and then the bottom, because sometimes windshields do go under a hood. Perfect.
Okay, so you can slide that a little bit once you lay it down, as long
Yes,
as the urethane
a
is
little
still...
bit. Now if you're off a couple inches, you're screwed. You need to either pull the windshield back out, rerun your glue, or lift it up. Sometimes you can lift it up if you haven't slapped it down yet, but
Okay.
you will definitely have to look at your bead and see how it looks. Pull this over a little bit.
It's definitely the best way farther.
Side down underneath the fender too. Just like that. I just like to stick it on the bracket and give it one good shove, like that, till you hear it click. So that, my friend, is your new windshield.
Very nice.
We'll clean it up. So just a little tidbit there. If you want to see me do another windshield, anybody out there is following Eric the car guy. He's a buddy of mine, and we did a windshield install on a Honda Element. One together for him.
And guys, I'll post a link, a card right above this video with a link to Eric's video that he did with Rich. It's a pretty good video they did.
That was pretty funny.